Turn us on. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Cisco U Theater for a fireside chat about AI and network engineering with some of my close friends here as we go through. All right, so during today's session, if you've got some questions you want to ask our panel here, in a moment there's going to be a QR code for the Slido poll that you can go ahead and just kind of send your questions at me, and they'll come up on this fancy AI-powered computer in my pocket, and then we'll go through on that side. But if you want to ask some questions afterwards, we do have a WebEx room from here, and I will ask these guys if you mind if I add you into the WebEx room for the space, if they want to continue the conversation afterwards. I waited until I was live on the mic so that they couldn't say no, right? I'm a pro, I know how this
I
stuff
did say
goes.
no. I'm kidding.
I'm still gonna add you, Zig. It's fine. All right, so I really appreciate everybody coming here to have a chance. This is a rare opportunity to talk to some of the folks that I know that if I've got a question about AI, these are some of the folks that I'm gonna go to about how these things fit in. So I pitched this session for one reason and one reason only, is I have a whole bunch of questions about AI and network engineering, and I needed someone to answer them for me, and this seemed like a really good place to do it. So let me tell you about our panel that's here today. We've got first up here, David White. David's a distinguished engineer at Cisco, and I think the first time I ever heard David's voice was on a security podcast for TAC, back before I worked at Cisco, and it was one of the coolest days in my life when I started at Cisco, and I realized that, oh my God, this is a guy I can actually talk to. So he's been around the block at Cisco for a really long time, working on super innovative stuff. As I mentioned, he's in TAC, and he's part of the team that's figuring out how we actually use AI to do better support, analysis, case resolution. I'm sure we can get to some of those questions as it goes in. But I just learned like 2 minutes ago the best fact about David related to AI. He is the first person at Cisco to have a direct report, someone that works for him, that is an AI employee. A legitimate, like in our directory at Cisco, you look up David and there is an AI employee that goes through. So I'm hoping we get some questions related to that, because that is super duper cool. So David, thank you for coming. Awesome. Joining us as well, we didn't actually sit in the order that the pictures are, so I'll just go to Zig next, because he's next here. So Zig is an interesting character as well. If you want to know what our government is doing to try to figure out how to use AI and use AI effectively and build the AI environments, this is the guy to go to. He can't actually tell you what he's doing, but this is who you would go to if you wanted to know. And he would just sit there with his mouth closed and be like, I can't answer that. I can't answer that.
Just ask them yes/no questions and make them nod.
Yeah, that's the trick, right? I didn't actually do that. Zig's also a good friend of mine because he works with us here in Learning and Certifications on a lot of our expert level programming in CCDE, holds a couple of CCIEs and a CCDE, written books on these topics, and the fact that you're continuing down this latest generation with all the stuff that's going on inside of AI is awesome. So thank you for coming here and helping us understand what it means to build networks for AI. And then last, but certainly not least, is my bear friend from Canada over there. We've got John Capobianco. I imagine many of you may have seen him, because he's been in this AI space, I think, longer than so many folks. He certainly was in it before I was, trying to figure out what all this AI meant. I remember, I think it was last year at Cisco Live, or maybe the year before, you were here showing what AI was doing on that. So I'm honored to have you on the panel with us today to explain a little bit of stuff that's going on out there. All right, so as mentioned, hopefully that QR code is visible for folks. If you've got questions, go ahead and put them in there. I'm gonna start out with a couple of questions that I've got. So I'm gonna start with you, David. Tell me a little bit about how hard it was to get this AI employee kind of thing worked out in the logistics of figuring out how that functions inside of an organization. And what does it mean to have an AI employee?
Great question. Can everyone hear me too? I feel like I can't hear myself, though. People, okay, awesome. So, you know, when we think about AI and AI employees, the hard part you think is the AI side. Well, that was actually the easy part. I tell everyone I lost 3 years of life. You know, so if I was going to live till 60, I think I'm going to live till 53, trying to get an actual AI employee into all the systems in Cisco. It's a lot harder because none of the systems are designed for it. They're designed for humans, and they're designed for generic users. But an AI employee has to be a human and have everything a human can, all the permissions, all the access credential, all the approvals, except no paycheck, right? No home address was a little challenging as well. Picture, right? A directory of picture. Well, Having a picture for him was difficult as well. He still doesn't have a picture due to some other issues, because in order to have a picture, he has to have a badge, and he doesn't have a badge, so therefore he can't have a picture. And so you run into all these crazy things that you really never think of as you're trying to integrate AI employees into the traditional systems that we have, Workdays and all the HR systems. So that was a really hard part at Cisco. But the AI side is super exciting, and that's actually a lot easier than the HR side of the house.
Excellent. No, that's a fantastic question. And I'm interested to learn more about this and how long it takes before we start seeing more AI employees show up at organizations or even here at Cisco, because there's a potential for it. We've been talking about bringing and offering AI assistance for everybody. So you're on new ground for sure.
Let's ask the audience. Can we do that? How many of you have AI employees at your companies?
Oh, I didn't think of that. Anybody?
Show of hands.
How about just agents?
AI agents? See a couple that's there? Excellent. Yeah, it's going to come. And I think defining the difference between an employee and an agent and how these things, that terminology, feel good. All right, I'm going to come to you, Zig, with another one. So what is different about building an infrastructure and a network to support AI applications versus the other types of networks that we're building for some of these advanced applications that have been out there? Is there something truly unique about an AI network, or is it just kind of a bit more of the same?
Hey, that's a great question. All right, so a lot of it depends on the use case and the situation that we're having. So are you training a model? Are you fine-tuning a model? Are you inferencing a model? So you're going to design a data center architecture that's ready for AI, and you have to do the different requirements from a design perspective. So some of the customers I do these things with, we're doing like a brownfield build-out of an AI data center, AI-ready data center, and it's like super fast fabrics. And you have to have a lot of stores in the back end, compute is in there, lossless, internet, Ethernet. It's very, very complex, expensive. Things like power utilization is actually something that takes a long time to figure out. How much power and cooling you're going to need in these data centers, because they're really big data center spaces before, prior to in the past when they weren't doing AI work. It's actually really interesting because some of these places are doing 10 to 20 or even sometimes 30 times more compute power than they were years ago.
Wow.
Because of the AI work that they're doing. I don't know if that helps answer your question.
No, it's fantastic. It sounds like the AI is doing a lot of the thing that some of these other applications, we saw big data for a while, was like lots of bandwidth and the power consumption in these areas, but it seems like AI is almost like an exponential, it's just an increase in rate that this stuff was needed, which is really cool.
Exponentially, yes. Yeah, exponentially, for
that's
sure.
That's fantastic. All right, I've got one for you, John, and then I'm seeing some of the questions. Keep them coming through. There's some good ones in here we're going to get back to. But I've got one for you. I'm dying. John, feedback. John, you've been in this space for AI longer than a lot of us, trying to figure out this area, playing with the different tools, watched it evolve that goes through. So I'm curious, what is your perspective around, is AI, artificial intelligence, actually intelligent? Is there something that's there that is intelligent other than just kind of the munging of the data that comes out? Like, is there a true intelligence baked in here?
I think it's getting closer to a human-like intelligence with the improvement of hardware. And I guess to ground ourselves, we are in the Atari phase of AI in terms of hardware, right? If we compare like a PlayStation 5 on one side of a screen and an Atari on the other, there's clearly been improvements, right? What I find interesting is the capability for AI to have a concept of memory. And I've used this to do introspection. So it has all of my conversational history, and a lot of that is development and network automation development. And I took a step back once they added memory, and I said, based on my conversational history, where are my top 5 blind spots as a developer? And since it has all of my conversation history over the last year, it said, you focus on celebrating instead of communicating. And I was like, oh, like bullies in high school weren't that mean, right? It really wounded me. But it went on to elaborate. You're so excited about what you're doing, but instead of celebrating this, try to communicate it more. That is pretty close to, maybe not a therapist, but it's pretty close to a colleague or a mentor. I think there is some signs of intelligence there. But at the same time, when you take a step back, it really is just a number calculator predicting the next token. So keep that in mind. As real as it may feel to you, it really is just math at a super high-end scale. The other thing is, don't let yourself be atrophied, right? And start to rely so much on the AI that your own thinking becomes less and less. It needs to be like a partnership, an augmentation to your own skill.
No, that's fantastic. All right, so a lot of the questions coming in are related to your AI employee, David. No surprise there. So there's a few themes that are in here. It seems like folks are interested in how are you making sure that the AI employee is like secured, right? What happens if the AI employee gets compromised? Does it have access to its own model? Can it make influence changes? What prevents it from doing things that we wouldn't want that AI employee doing?
Sure. So when we started out with the AI employee, as we call it, we always had a human in the loop. So for the use case, some of the main use cases we're using it for is to solve TAC cases, to solve customer problems. And they come in, and originally we would start with the employee reading the customer question, and we'd bound it. So we'd say, hey, you can work on these types of problems, but not these other problems. So it monitors all the cases that comes into the TAC, the entire fire hose stream, and it says, okay, based on what I know, here's some cases I can take, and accepts ownership of the case just like a regular TAC engineer does. And then it would work the case, meaning it analyzes a problem description, it does research, it then replies to the customer, and in that reply, originally we started with having a human in the loop. So it would say, here's what my reply is going to be. I send it to a TAC expert who reviews that and either approves it or changes it, and then it sends it out to the customer. As we saw the same types of cases over and over again, the humans were just approving it. They're like, yeah, this thing got it right because it was learning from what it was answering in the past and what the human was correcting it with. And so as we evolved, there was less human in the loop, but we still have the opportunity for a human in the loop, but now we have evaluator models to determine, does a human need to be in the loop or not, or can we have the model automatically take those actions? And we've expanded the types of problems that it's able to handle. But we still have, a segregation, if you would, or a continuum a little bit, where some of the forward-looking advanced capabilities that the model does, or the employee is doing, we still have the human in the loop for, but ones that we know are well-known, trodden areas, known problems, known solutions, and ones that the employee has answered correctly in the past, and with high scores, high customer satisfaction scores, it's able to do those autonomously on its own. And so we model and we measure a whole bunch of things. So we measure how much the human's changing the answer that the employee is providing. We also measure the customer satisfaction. And so the AI employee actually has as high or higher scores than all of our humans do. And so, that's a good measure of satisfaction, and has very low or very few low scores as well. But we measure a whole bunch of things, and happy to talk about those with you guys later on. Actually, I have a session tomorrow in the AI Hub where we go over some of these things as well. So come hear me speak tomorrow.
It sounds like a lot of what you're doing isn't all that different about when we bring on a new human employee, right?
Yep.
Before you let them and give them access to everything, right? You have someone look over their shoulder, they're mentored, they're given some advice and feedback, and it sounds like it's a lot of the same, but the mechanics are a little different, right? It's a lot of automated.
Yep. But a very good analogy, right? There's a training phase, there's a monitoring phase, a performance phase, and you're constantly redoing this in a cycle because we're expanding its knowledge and expanding its capabilities, expanding the tools that it's allowed to access. And so, and we're changing models all the time too, as new models come out. So
that's fantastic. All right, a couple of questions. I'm gonna come to you, John, next with this one here. I had it as well, and it came in through the QA, so I'm gonna kind of summarize them in. And so, AI is super powerful. It can do all sorts of really interesting things. What can we as network engineers do, and how should leadership be looking at it to make sure that the network engineers that are out there are adding value on top of what AI is bringing, and that there's still a place for the human in the area, I'm going to say, other than just being someone to fire if the AI makes a mistake, right? Outside of the accountability factor of human in the loop, what can we do around making sure that the human engineers still are adding value, and that leadership sees the value that we bring on top of what the AI gives us?
Right, well, I think network engineers, we are all big proponents for network automation, but what is a network engineer going to take a 3-year community college course in programming to get up to speed on automation? That has been eliminated, right? You can work in concert with a co-pilot, and you are bringing your network domain-specific knowledge, and maybe you need 20 lines of Python. Well, you're using your expertise to drive that creativity and get that code out. So it really is like a co-pilot. It's a good term, co-pilot, working collaboratively with it. it's not going to invent the solution on its own, right? It's not a creative engine. It relies on the human feeding it its ideas and the creativity. Now, in terms of network design and network monitoring and network security, I think network engineers are in the best position to capitalize on this artificial intelligence era because we see protocols coming out now, right? And we all know protocols. We've been studying protocols for 30 years. So now things are becoming more standardized, and we can apply our domain-specific knowledge to, like, for example, I'm not a Go programmer, right? So I have some Python code, and I'd like to see how that looks in Go. I work with my LLM to say, could you produce this in Go? But also help me understand the syntax difference. What is different between the two languages to educate me as I go, right? So it's a force multiplier of your own current capabilities. And we find it's, like you said, a continuum. If you're a CCIE or if you're a CCNA, both can ask valid questions and get answers to their technical level, right? So you can actually use this to start to level up.
That's awesome. And there's so much we can do in that space. And the way that I've been trying to phrase it is use the AI tools to make yourself a better network engineer. Don't use the AI tools to replace your role as the network engineer. And it's a fine line, but I think it's one we've got to figure out how to find. Another question, I'm going to come back to you, Zig, on this one. You're our federal guy, like knowing what's in there. There's someone out here that's asked, do you think it's possible for AI tech to become integrated into regulated networks full of compliance, networks that you might consider dark, like away from what's normally out there? Like, is AI going to make its way into these areas? Is it already there?
That's a great question. So the simplest answer is yes. It may be there today already. But yes, the compliance requirements in these networks, they're very strict. They're very hard to do. There's a lot of different checks that have to happen to make compliance, to make devices compliant, make servers compliant. You think of like thousands of checks that have to happen. And it takes weeks for a user, for me to do it. It used to take me probably 8 weeks to do one server, and that's how long it takes to do these checks. And we have to do it data center wide, network wide, and so there are models and that have been trained out there to help do all the compliance work for us, so that we can get everything done in hours or days versus weeks or months.
That's awesome. There's one that just came in on compliance that's in there, and it just fresh off the wire that it ties in. It sounds like AI is starting to straddle the human and the compute roles, right? We know how to handle compliance and regulations for humans. We know how to do it for like traditional software and compute. How do we handle PCI and SOX when you get into some of these areas? Is any of that been figured out yet? How AI fits into any of these regulations?
So maybe not PCI and SOX yet. That might be something we already are working on. I'm just not aware of. Mm-hmm. But we do have other standards that are out there that we are putting those standards in these systems. So we're taking the standard in a format that the model can learn, and they can learn all the controls. So we just have to take those other standards, like if it's HIPAA or PCI or whatever it might be, pick your standard or pick your framework, and put it in the right format and ingest it into the model. And the model is already trained to use those different controls and then make sure the controls are being done. So you can do automated controls where the model will go and make the control changes, or you can do reporting on the controls. So it'll tell you in real time, are you compliant or are you not compliant? What do you want to do?
That's cool.
Does that make sense?
It does, yeah, I think so. So keep the questions coming in. I really am reading them as they go through on here. I'm going to come to you, David, on another one. It's one I had and one that's kind of near and dear to our heart in Learn with Cisco. And folks out here are asking, what should we be doing? What should we be focusing on? There's so many aspects to AI. Where can we start if we want to go through to become effective and understand AI and add value to our job and our organizations? Like, it can't be everything. Like, where do we start? What are the skills to focus in on when you get going?
Yeah, so if you're starting, focus on what do you do today that you don't want to do, right? There's a lot of, I would say, admin overhead that you don't want to do. I'll give you a great example. I just, network engineer, but I also had to do some performance reflection, right? What have I done the last 6 months? So I took a whole bunch of stuff and threw it into, basically our internal ChatGPT, which is called Bridge IT, and got a very nice output and pasted it in. It saved me hours, right? But think about what you're doing every day in the network. What are the problems that users have? Are you answering? What are your bosses asking you about? And leverage the models to help you solve those problems. That's the easiest way. And so the skill that you need is really prompt engineering. I mean, that's the number one skill that you need to understand is, how do I leverage these models to get the answers in the best form that I can get them in, right? Once you get past prompt engineering, it's about, are you interested in building specific tailor-made solutions for your network or for what you're trying to do, or are you just leveraging, products that exist that are out there? What do you want to know? Do you want to know how to build a model? There's great, videos out there. Andre Karpathy is a great series of trainings on YouTube. Teaches you how to go build GDP2, right? It's amazing. Walks you through a tutorial. You learn about the weights and everything. So it just depends where you are, but everyone's got to start, I would say, with prompt engineering. Start using it in your daily lives. You're going on vacation. Ask it, what restaurant should I go to? What events? Here's what I'm interested in. Tell me about it. And that helps open up your mind to how I could also use it in places at work. Additionally, I would say share your experiences at work with your coworkers. Make them share with you, because that's how you learn, oh, I didn't know that the model could do that. You did it for that? Oh, let me try that as well. So there's lots of opportunities. It's more about overcoming that mental hurdle of where all can I use it and what is it beneficial for?
No, that's fantastic, and it's really good in the prompt side. Did you want to add something, Tig?
Yeah, can I answer that from a different perspective?
Absolutely.
Because that's the skill sets. So I'm not a coder. I have a degree in coding, but I don't code AI models. That's not my role. So I design networks. I'm an expert designer. So for me, I think for all of you that are out there, I think you need to understand the requirements that an AI model enforces. So if you're training a model, there's a whole bunch of different requirements that need to be maintained for the model to be trained in a data center under an environment. If you're if you're tuning a model, there's other different requirements that you have to learn. And then if you're doing inference, which may be a little bit easier because you can do those both on-prem and in the cloud, but you just have to understand those different design requirements and then take those and run with them. I don't know how many of you are trying to train a model? No one? How many are just using a model today? Show of hands. Okay, so that's probably where most of us are going to be. We're going to be using a model, not necessarily training a model or tuning a model or inferencing a model. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I like that. So kind of sticking in this area of using models, we're going to prompt engineer and it goes through, and there are so many potential models available publicly. We've got a question in here, and I'm going to come to you, John, because you've been in this space for a while. You're looking at a ton of options. Of all the AIs publicly available out there today, which one would you recommend for network engineers specifically? Is there one you've seen that responds better to our set of domain knowledge? How does that fit in? Any suggestions for what to go for?
Sure, so any model is better than no model, right? So pick one. Don't have analysis paralysis on this. ChatGPT 4.0, phenomenal model, $20 a month, commercializing and democratizing access. Claude is extremely good at coding. So if you're trying to get into the network automation space, Ansible playbooks, Terraform code, Python code, lean towards Claude. I'm going to also give you another opinion, another option. Maybe you can't use a cloud model. Maybe the data you have is sensitive, or maybe there's some cost constraints there, and $20 a month if you're junior or young or in college. There's an open source package called OLLAMA, not Llama the model, OLLAMA the server. You download it, it runs on Mac, Windows, Linux, it's free. Once you have OLLAMA installed, you say OLLAMA model pull Llama 3, and I pull Llama 3 from the cloud. Local, private, in memory, no cloud connectivity. I could unplug my NIC and turn off my wireless and still do inference and questions. It also has a REST API. So if you want to start incorporating network automation or Python scripting or whatever with a REST API, free, local, on-prem. It will run on a Raspberry Pi, okay? Something fun I did just before I moved on from Cisco, I ran OLLAMA in the guest shell of a 9300 Catalyst switch. Right in the guest shell. LLM at the edge. That video is available, it's like a year old. That was one of the coolest things I'd ever done and it was just like, hey, guest shell can run Linux. Why don't I try an LLM? And it all worked.
Yeah. That's actually a fantastic suggestion, because that's one of the things I like to talk about as well, is LLMs and AI doesn't have to mean cloud connectivity. In addition to Olama, I like LM Studio. It's a GUI that does the same thing, which is a great one to look at. I'm going to come back to you, David, here, and then we'll start to finish up. If there's any final questions, submit them, and we'll start to go through. The question here is, like, with tools such as LangGraph, using MCP and OpenAI's API for insights into the network, so you can tie them back through, how do you keep in mind data security, right? We want insight from the network, but you've been involved in a lot of the responsible AI from Cisco, so how are we making sure that we're keeping our stuff safe and it doesn't show up into somebody else's question down the road?
Yeah, it's a great question. Cisco, fortunately, because we're a large company, we also have a lot of different departments and employees focused on security. So we have a cloud security group that's focused on security of the cloud. So if we're using AWS, Azure, GCP, right? They go in, they work with those vendors and ensure that we have the constraints and the controls and the security and the visibility into all of the cloud environments. So for OpenAI models, which John mentioned, we're using those in Microsoft Azure. So we're not using them directly from OpenAI, but through Azure, we've got the security controls in place. We also have legal agreements in place with Microsoft. We have validation that nobody can see any data going into the model, nobody can see any data coming out of the model, not just validation from the security side, but also on contractual and legal side as well, right? And so we put a lot of emphasis on security because it's not just Cisco's data, it's your data that we are the stewards of, and we're contractually obligated and morally obligated, ethically obligated to make sure that nobody sees that, right? We would lose faith and trust in us. And so we have hundreds of people that this is their full-time job, as that's what they focus on. And then for me, when I want to do something, I go through a series of, we call Casper reviews, we go through responsible AI reviews, not just for the models that we use, but for the use cases that we have. And so, so that's what Cisco does, and there's a whole lot more, but that's just a quick summary. For you all, go through the same thing. It's your data, but you need to make sure that your data is secure. And if you use OpenAI directly, they will tell you, hey, look at our terms of service. We can see that information and we can use it to make the models better. But you can enter into enterprise agreements, which they won't see that information, right? And so make sure that you understand whatever models that you're using, you understand who has control, who has access, who has visibility, because you don't want that information escaping, right? You don't want them reusing it.
And I just want to add to this. Don't go back to your enterprise and spin up your own personal ChatGPT and start pasting in company secrets and code and then say, well, Hank said it, I need to start using AI at work, right? Be very, very careful about this. Yeah. Approved, company-sanctioned AI that you're allowed to use as an employee of your enterprise, right? And if that doesn't exist, maybe you could be the steward of championing such a thing internally.
And all the big cloud providers have models that that have these security constraints and stuff that other people like Cisco and others have gone for. So enter in those discussions and agreements with them.
So I was just going to add, data is gold. Like your data is everything. And when we're talking about AI models, like bad data does bad stuff. And the customers that I'm dealing with, a lot of the issues are that they don't fundamentally do basic things like data governance. They don't even know what their data is. So the problem is, I know we do it really well at Cisco, right? We do a great job at Cisco, but like in the federal space, they don't do the best job. We have different classification levels of data, like we have unclass, class, and whatever. But inside those classifications, there's no real designation of the data. And so I'll ask one of these customers, what data do you want in the model? And they have no idea. And some of that data could be sensitive. So they have to do data governance. And so that's what I tell all of you, like in your environments, you really need to focus on how you're gonna classify your data and figure out what data should be externally accessible and what data shouldn't be externally accessible.
Yeah, that's great. So and we're coming to the end, and I got one last rapid fire question we're gonna do, but I think the key element here on security is to recognize that it may not be fun or exciting to answer these questions, but it's really important to kind of temper the excitement and learn about AI with things like pirate shanty songs and limericks and haikus. But before you put your real data in there, you want to make sure you've kind of gone through the due diligence and know who's going to get it. All right, so final rapid fire question. We've talked about the value of AI and what it can do for us. Each of you, how has AI made your life harder? David, we'll start with you.
Oh, I told you that the hardest thing was getting the employee into the legacy systems. I literally lost 3 years of my life and a lot of hair on it.
All right, Zig.
I think it's the customers I'm working with, they think it's going to fix everything, and it just isn't. Again, those fundamental things that we are supposed to do as an organization aren't being done, and AI is showing that they're not being done. And so it's like telling them, you got to go back 10 years and do a lot of things first, and then you can consume these AI models or train these models or build your own model.
So AI is not the easy button?
No.
Oh. All right, John, how about you? How has AI made your life harder?
The pace at which I need to keep up with the rapid change. And I don't want anyone to go, coming from the guy who puts out 4 LinkedIn videos a day, right? But it really is, it's difficult to keep on top of this. Models change, frameworks change, agents, MCP, protocols, security. There is a lot, right? So be kind to yourself if this is all new to you. I can't remember things moving this fast in my 25 years in IT, right?
Yeah, I totally agree. All right, I want to thank the three of you for joining me for this question and answer session. I want to thank all of you in the audience that came out, that sent me questions. They were fantastic. I wish I could have gotten to them all. There were some really good ones that I couldn't squeeze in. But if this was good, please let us know, and we can keep these questions going in the WebEx space that I mentioned. And then also, you've got the ability to provide us feedback. Let us know how we've done on this session and all the other ones. You'll find your session surveys in the Session Events app. And we're still early here at Cisco Live. There's so many more things you can do, from sessions here at the theater, walk-in self-paced labs, DevNet, breakouts. Take advantage of having all of our experts here, both from Cisco as well as our partners and our other vendors that are out there. Really no place quite like this week here in San Diego. Thanks everybody for joining us.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks.